Hello, 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 welcome. I'm doing the millennial pause just to make sure everything is working. Send me some hearts if you can see and hear me. I take hearts and I take donuts. How are you guys? We've got Natoski, Dr. Crispy, Slowboy, Jethro, Paul for a minute. We got Rachel, Moldy Apple. Everybody's in. Are we ready to go? We're going to be talking more about Disney. Let's see. Yes, D's Donuts. And I even got a donut from Universal Studios. We just got back from our trip with Jamie Kennedy, and we did a live show. Hey, what's up, Baselit Analyzer? Is everything coming through loud and clear? Slowboy gave me some white hearts, so I think we're doing good. And yeah, we're talking about LA. It was a trip. Los Angeles, it's doing okay. Certain parts are crumbling and some are holding the line. It just depends on what street you're on in Los Angeles, if you're having a good time or not. But we had a great time. We were so lucky to hang out with Sam Tripoli too. That was really fun. He took us to a live comedy show by Jimmy Dore, a comedian in Los Angeles, and that was so crazy because it started off like, you know, your typical raunchy stand-up comedy, and then he brought out a panel of people, of which Sam Tripoli was on the panel and Rob Schneider was on the panel. And forgive me, I can't remember the other guy's name. He's just on Joe Rogan. He was on the panel also. And so as Jimmy Dore was going through these funny pictures, they're supposed to make comments about, you know, things in the pictures. And the pictures kept getting more serious and more political. And come to find out, it turned into a full-blown, like, conspiracy tinfoil hat live show. And the audience was loving it. They were on board for the whole thing. They didn't want to stop. It went over an hour. Oh, that more than it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be, you know, maybe like a 90-minute show. It went for 2.5, 3 hours. There were boomers in the audience trying to fight each other. There was a MAGA boomer and a communist boomer trying to duke it out. It had everything. What's going up, chat? Sabrina's here. Hi, Sabrina. How are you? Denise likes Jimmy Dore. Yeah, I never heard of him, but he was really on point. Very good. I got to meet Rob Schneider backstage after the show. I felt a little embarrassed because I was just kind of like blabbing because I was nervous. I don't know. So sorry, Rob, if I just talked your ear off, but he was real sweet and pleasant. He actually introduced himself to me, so he was a really sweet guy. What else happened? Our live show went well. Jamie Kennedy crushed it. The audience loved it. He wants to do a show every 3 months with us in different places, so stay tuned for more live shows across the nation with Jamie Kennedy. What else happened? The projector was not working, and it kept cutting out during all of my slides, so that made it kind of frustrating. And then when Jay tried to come help me fix it, he tripped over the mic stand and the mic punched me in the face in front of everyone, so that was fun. What else happened? I mean, it was just like a non-stop adventure from the time we left home. We had to leave and go spend the night in Orlando and then catch a 4 o'clock in the morning flight. We land in Los Angeles at 9 in the morning LA time, and then we drive immediately to San Diego to go on OAN network. So Jay went on with Allison from OAN, and then we went to have lunch with them, Allison and Paula. They're really nice ladies, and we had a good time. What else? And then straight from there, we did get to walk around and see the sea lions in La Jolla. I don't know if we've got any California babies here, but I always love when we go to La Jolla to watch the sea lions barking down there at the beach. And then we went to another Ortho Bro meetup. At least 15 people came to meet me and Jay at a restaurant in San Diego, and that was organized by a cool ortho bro named Ben from a parish in San Diego. And then we drove all the way back to Los Angeles that night, and then the next day we did the show with Jamie Kennedy, the live show. Now the neighborhood that was in was very rough. I apologize. You never know when you're getting venues, like who is going to, like what the neighborhood looks like. You get to see the inside of the picture, but yeah. So it was an adventure. So the show went very well, and then the next day we were hanging out all day with Sam Tripoli. We did the Jimmy Dore show, and then right after that, we went to another comedy club called Deaf Noodles with Sam Tripoli. So we did 3 events with Sam, and he is a legend in Hollywood. I didn't know he was such like an integral part of the stand-up comedy culture in Los Angeles. He's very well respected, very well known. So I'm glad that he is representing all of us tinfoil hats there in Los Angeles. So we went to a club called Deaf Noodles where he did a set, and we got to talk to all of the comedians backstage there, which was really fun. And then he did the show Jimmy Dore, and then immediately after that he went to the Comedy Store and did another set where he let us tag along there. We walked right in. Everybody at the Comedy Store, which is a very famous, very well established club in Los Angeles. I mean, any comedian knows what the Comedy Store is. They all know and love Sam Tripoli. After his set, he gave us a private tour that no one ever gets to see of the haunted places and all the dark corners of Comedy Store, so that was super fun. The next day, we got up and went to Universal Studios, where we went on a studios tour. So now we've done Paramount, we've done Warner Brothers, and we did Universal Studios this time. I always love to go backstage and see how the movies were made, and it's so interesting to see all the sets. I can't even name all of the famous, like, they had the house from Psycho back there. They had all of these, like, full-blown city blocks built up, neighborhoods. We realized that Universal Studios became famous for monster movies, so they're the ones who brought us all, like, Frankenstein and Dracula and the Mummy and Invisible Man. So they were really put the creature feature on the map. And Universal Studios theme park, so to go on the tour of the studio you have to buy a ticket to the theme park. So we did that, and then after the tour was over, we kind of went on some rides to see what's up. The Harry Potter world was there, the Simpsons world, that's where I got this donut, y'all. So I don't even know, I want to put this up somewhere, but I don't know where to set it. There's nowhere, so we'll just put it behind me. But got donuts for the donuts, and so we went all day at Universal, and then we got on a plane that night back to Florida. It was just literally nonstop driving, visiting. Oh, I even forgot, we drove to San Pedro to see, what's his name? The other, Eddie Bravo, playing live music on St. Patrick's Day at a bar. All we could do was like get there, watch a couple songs, give him our book, and leave, because we were supposed to meet Sam Tripoli. So it never ended. I'm still kind of like, I haven't, got my sleep back, but whatever. We're gonna have fun tonight. We're gonna talk about Disney World of Warcraft, and how did Walt Disney play into the propaganda that we were talking about a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Psychology Inc., Freud and Bernays, and then we talked about the life of Walt Disney. And now we're going to talk about Disney merges with the U.S. government to produce propaganda and training films for the Army and for the public. And last time we did the stream, somebody said, did you know Walt used to draw mouse ears inside of a pentagram? And I said, you know what? I did know that. Of course I know that. And I have proof right here. And this is actually from the DVD series that I got a lot of this information out of for this chapter. Is called Walt Disney on the Front Lines, where you can see all their propaganda films, all their little shorts, all the things that even made it to the cutting room floor. So let's just get right into it. Let's check the chat and then we will start this chapter. So what we're doing is going over chapters from a book that I don't publish anymore because it has a lot of pro-magic stuff in it and ideas that I do not hold anymore. But I still think there's a lot of good stuff in here that needs to get out, even though you can't buy this book. Now we can watch these live streams and be not slow boys anymore. Right. We've got Jethro. What's up, Jethro? I'm glad you're here. Dr. Crispy giving me some donuts. And here is the dono chat if you want to give me some more donuts. Also, I did get that book that we were talking about last time, that goofy one, the 66 Laws of the Illuminati, and it does look as goofy as it sounds. We're going to roast that for you guys soon enough. What's going on? Everyone's getting along, saying hi. There's no nub jokes this time. We were nubbing it out last time. I'm surprised all you nubbers are being serious tonight. Okay, I've got my kombucha in a glass bottle because someone got on me saying don't drink out of aluminum cans. You should only drink out of glass. So okay, we're going with glass. I knew that, but it's like they don't make everything in a glass bottle. What if Goofy wrote the book? Oh man, I hate Goofy. Goofy is like the worst character. Gosh, I can't stand his voice. I can't stand anything about Goofy. He is like the worst. If Goofy was in Toy Story, that would like break me because it's just gosh, like it's so dumb. But yes, what if Goofy wrote the book? Let's see. So here we go. Disney's World of Warcraft. No studio devoted more of its time or resources to wartime activity than Walt Disney's, and that is from Leonard Maltin. So on December 7th, 1941, everyone should know that date, right? That was when Japanese planes attacked Pearl Harbor. And within 24 hours, war had been declared and approved by Congress, and the United States officially entered World War II. Now, I'm sure lots of you tinfoil hats will have a lot to say about it was Pearl Harbor an FF or not, or did they know? Like, we can go into that as much as you want, but today we're just focusing on the role that Disney propaganda films played into it. And you know, isn't that interesting that the very next day they declared war officially? So that day, Walt Disney arrived to work at his studio in Burbank only to be stopped at a checkpoint and made to confirm his identity. So he was locked out of his own studio. The entire place had been commandeered by the military as a primary defense station to guard the nearby Lockheed plant against a possible airstrike. All film equipment was replaced by anti-aircraft weaponry, and the parking lot was filled to capacity with crates of ammunition and jeeps. Paul says, Goofy is a good dog. Pluto is a dog. I know! Why does Goofy wear pants and like have a life, and Pluto has to act like a dog? Right? Doesn't make sense. Isn't Goofy a cow? I don't know. That's why I hate him. You can't even like figure out what he is, and he's just this big floppy goof. Gore. Okay. So All the film equipment was replaced by anti-aircraft weaponry, and the parking lot was filled to capacity with crates and ammunition and jeeps. During this military occupation, which is what they call it, the Disney Studio became a virtual war factory with well over 90% of its production in the service of government training, education, and propaganda films. Yes, you heard that right. Donald, Pluto, Goofy, they all get drafted. Minnie Mouse is encouraged to save her leftover kitchen grease to help make ammunition. Some of these films were top secret and concerned the secret psychological tactics of the Americans. Now, they weren't just making cute cartoons for children to be involved in the war effort. They were also making animated films for people to watch in boot camp or whatever, like up to the very top. One of these films was called Army Psychotherapy, about stress, the adrenal glands, the basics of fear, and how to instill fear. So this is getting really weird for a Disney cartoon. You think they're so innocent and just fun-loving, but no, they are in on this military-industrial complex, and now more than ever. And this isn't even going tonight get into the theme parks themselves, which are mind control centers. I have a whole other, it was a chapter I was writing for a future book that never got made, but we'll go over it on the live stream, about Epcot and about Disneyland and Disney World themselves. So they're making animated features on how to instill fear. Walt Disney himself was outraged when he learned that his was the only studio to be turned into a makeshift military base. He always felt victimized by the Army and would openly complain about it until in 1942 he won the prestigious Irving Thalberg Award for his high-quality propaganda cartoons. Now, remember last time we were talking about how many awards and accolades Walt Disney had actually won in his lifetime. 22 Academies, 59 nominations, 7 Emmys, 950 honors and citations from almost every nation in the world, 48 Academy Awards, just all kinds of medals of honor and recognition. So I guess this was a way to placate Walt a little bit, just give him another title. And it's kind of funny, I knew a Freemason who was very heavily into it, and he didn't have a lot except for the Brotherhood. He didn't have, a stable home or income or anything like that, but he had the Freemasons, and he had so many titles and honors in that world that just kind of kept him going. And we even had a joke like he won't leave the house unless you give him another title. But for some people, these honors and these titles is kind of, what keeps them going. So he wins the Irving Thalberg Award. Walt chose to stick with the military theme in his project Victory Through Air Power, which ended with a triumphant obliteration of Tokyo. The cartoon reduces war to machines fighting machines and leaves out the consequence of human suffering and death. So this cartoon, if you watch it, both of these, Army Psychotherapy and Victory Through Air Power, it's just factories of machines making killing implements that go to kill other machines. So guns fighting each other in animation, and they don't show you that this is actually people dying. So let me get a pen here. One critic that saw this movie, Victory Through Air Power, of the time, he called it a gay dream of Holocaust, which it's pretty in favor of weapons and war. It is very like, yes. So Winston Churchill liked it so much that he requested a private screening for himself and Franklin Roosevelt to help convince the president to go ahead with a long-range bombing program. So here's Disney cartoons influencing world leaders and them using these as propagandas to convince other world leaders. Club 33, yeah, we talked about that last time. Exactly. What's going on in the chat? So one of these movies that we're going to talk about, or these shorts really, they're not full-length features, was Chicken Little. So if you've ever seen Chicken Little, you might remember his tagline is "The sky is falling, the sky is falling," and you don't really remember much else of it. But this was a 1943 version. We can clearly see how the culture creators, or the sorcerers as I like to refer to them, how they view people and how they use us against each other. So in this story, in this Chicken Little, and here's the old poster of it, right? So we're introduced to a coop of chickens that mirror human society, and they really love to do this, like Animal Farm and stuff. Take anthropomorphize issues that plague people and put them in an animal setting. So the coop mirrors the human society. There is a rooster named Cocky Locky. He's the head man, he's the chicken inspector, he's the supervisor of egg production, and they say a good guy to know. So there's Cocky Locky, he's what? The alpha male, right? He's the toxic masculine element in this. Not that masculine is toxic, that's just a joke. But yeah, he's Cocky Locky. He has to have that rooster vibe, right? Then you have Henny Penny, who enjoys knitting, bridge, going to the hair salon, and most of all, gossip. So this is just a metaphor for like your basic woman, older, gossipy chicken woman. I don't know. Your basic bitch Karen, I guess. Then you have Turkey Lurkey and the smart set, who spend all day discussing what is wrong with the world. So that would be what, us, Turkey Lurkies, all of your little pundits that you like to tune into and find out what's going wrong in the world. I guess that would be your media, Turkey Lurkies. Then you have the Jitterbirds, who are a pretty feather-brained crowd that just want to dance and have fun. So these are, your young people, your people who just want to have a good time, your sports bros and your beer bros, and people who don't just, they don't think a lot, right? Basic Betty. Technically, the Turkey Lurkies were the small hat crew. Piggly Wigglies, not in this one. Maybe next time. So, the Ducky Lucky and all the other good time ducks spend their time as barflies. Then you have Chicken Little, the youngest, most naive chicken of the town, but generally a good egg. So just, an any chicken, any man, just kind of like a good little chicken. And this is the person that they are going to focus their propaganda on, as you will see. So finally, there is Foxy Loxy, the sly, hungry fox. And he ponders the best way to catch a chicken, but he's put off by the tall, sturdy fence and the farmer's shotgun. So here is Foxy Loxy. He's got your typical villain's cigar. And what is he doing? He's reading a book on psychology. Now, anybody who's studied the dark arts or sorcery or Satanism, going back to ancient times, is going to figure out that all of these people did was have advanced knowledge of astrological phenomena and advanced knowledge of human psychology. So that is what this fox is going to use to get himself a tummy full of chickens. So he ponders the best way to catch a chicken, and he's put off by, the fence and the protection that the farmer offers the chickens. So he decides, why should he jump into the coop and risk his life to catch one chicken when he can use psychology to get all of them to go where he wants them to go? Pretty smart fox, right? So the animators wanted to title the fox's book after Tiny Mustache Man's book, but instead they just labeled it Psychology. So Foxy here is a stand-in for Tiny Mustache Man, right? Because we are on the Allied powers side over here in the West in 1941. So Foxy Loxy, he quotes from his book, which was supposed to be MEINKAMPH by Tiny Mustache Man. He says, if you tell him a lie, don't tell a little one, tell a big one. And we hear this all the time. It's easier to lie to people if you make it big, and it's easier to convince someone of something that's untrue than it is to convince them of the truth, or any combination of that thought or whatever. But people, will more readily believe lies a lot of times than they will truth. So the concept of the big lie is straight from that book that I was just talking about, the red book, Tiny Mustache Man's book, where it states, quote, all this was inspired by the principle, which is quite true in itself, that in the big lie there is always a certain force of credibility, because the broad masses of a nation are always more easily corrupted in the deeper strata of their emotional nature than consciously or voluntarily, and thus, in the primitive simplicity of their minds, they more readily fall victim to the big lie than the small lie, since they themselves often tell small lies in little matters, but would be ashamed to resort to large-scale falsehoods. It would never come into their heads to fabricate colossal untruths, and they would not believe that others could have the impudence or to distort the truth so infamously. So that's straight from Tiny Mustache Man and Goebbels. Gorsh. Right? So, in the movie, in Chicken Little, Foxy Loxy steals a piece of wood with a 5-pointed star painted on it. Remember this pentagram? We talked about the pentagram a couple shows back when we were talking about sorcerers and robots, and what is the pentagram standing for, the averse pentagram and the upright pentagram, and how they would use this in the Pythagorean mystery school. And here also, if you are interested in Donald Duck as Pythagoras, there you go. It's I think that one's called Mathemagic. So Foxy Loxy gets this piece of wood with a pentagram painted on it that he got from a sign advertising astrology. So what did I just say? Cults use advanced knowledge of astrological sciences to fool people. He throws the piece of wood over the fence, and it hits Chicken Little in the head. The fox whispers to him through a hole in the fence, "This is the voice of doom. The sky is falling." So then Chicken Little rushes to all the other chickens, and he shows them his proof, the piece of wood with a star on it and the bump on his head. And he says, the sky is falling, right? And the chickens are all frightened until Cocky Locky appears as this voice of reason and identifies the star as a hunk of wood. So then everybody calms down. Cocky Locky has, smoothed over the situation. And the fox is temporarily foiled, but he has another mind control technique up his sleeve. And again, he quotes from his book, "Undermine the faith of the masses in their leaders." So the fox goes then to infiltrate the different social groups, spreading rumors through the fence, and he provokes the chickens to fight amongst themselves, and they demote Cocky Locky as king of the roost because he's not taking their concerns seriously enough. Then the fox uses another, it's called Mathemagic. Just look up Donald Duck Pythagoras Mathemagic, and you'll get a Disney educational cartoon about the cult of Pythagoras. So the fox continues. It says, by the use of flattery, insignificant people can be made to look upon themselves as born leaders. And again, this is straight from the Red Book of Tiny Mustache Man. The fox convinces Chicken Little that it is his turn now that Cocky Locky has fallen out of favor and he should be the one to step up and lead the chickens. But he's just a little chicken. Like, he's still a baby. He's not in Cocky Locky's maturity level yet. Kristen Trowbridge, $5. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Very nice. You get the donut of gratitude. Thank you. So the fox convinces Chicken Little that it's his turn now that Cocky Locky has fallen out of favor. He screams that he is their new leader and begins to debate Cocky Locky about the validity of his claims that the sky is falling in front of the whole town. So he's got some kind of proof. He's onto something, but it's not the sky that's falling. It's just the fox tricking him. So then the fox hits Cocky Locky in the head with another pentagram. And all the chickens witness this event and run to Chicken Little for guidance, right? Melissa, hello, how are you? Glad you made it. The fox counsels him to rush everyone to the caves, breaking their secure fence in the process. So Chicken Little has been listening to the fox whisper to him through the fence, and that's how he gets all of the chickens to listen to him and leave their secure place. So they break down their fence, and they all down a path set up by the fox. And I don't want to spoil it, but this does not have a very happy ending, unless you're a fox. It's pretty dark, actually. The moral of the story, as narrated by Foxy Loxy, the only one left, is don't believe everything you read. So, the significance and the poignancy of this cartoon is as apparent today as it was 70 years ago, and maybe even more so. So if controlling the masses was so streamlined at that time, imagine how much more sophisticated it has become, right? Many people in the modern day, what do you even call it now? The Patriot movement? I mean, it's gotten so big and weird. A lot of them are Chicken Littles, and they're guided by misdirection. They present the so-called evils of the world, which are, designed to engineer society into a particular polarity, and they miss the true dangers that are not comprehended because they don't look over the fence. So I encourage y'all to go watch this. They're not even that long, maybe like 10 minutes long, and maybe you'll pick up some stuff that even I missed, and definitely get the Walt Disney DVD series called Disney on the Front Lines, because that will give you all of the propaganda cartoons and the Army psychological training cartoons. And here is another Mickey going to war, Donald going to war, even Pluto going to war. But Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear, or so I was told. Isn't that a song? That's Marvin Gaye. Heard it through the grapevine, right? People say believe half of what you hear. How does it go? Sun. Anyway, okay, next cartoon. If you thought Chicken Little was a mind-blowing revelation, go ahead and send me a dono chat. Let's check it out and see if we got any donuts tonight yet. I'll send you back some donuts of gratitude. Yes, we got one. Denise, 10 donuts. Just cause, much love, and thanks, Jamie. You're welcome, babe. I appreciate that. Donuts of gratitude. Jamie, have you seen the new documentary about kids being abused at Nickel? Yes. No, I haven't seen it. It's in my queue to watch. It just came out, or the first couple episodes came out. I think it's called Quiet on the Set. What did we talk about? Let's see. What I put this in the book in 2012, people. And we talked about it last month. I think it was the show called Zone Theory or something like that. But yeah. Schmickle Schmodian. Right there in the sorcerer's arsenal against children. And their logo is sliming children. So it's only validation at this point for tinfoil hats. I don't think there is any going back. There's no proving us wrong. There's no making me feel stupid anymore after, COVID. That's done. That day is done. There's only whistleblowers and more validation for us tinfoil hats. So yeah, we may go over that after I watch it. We'll see what's in it. But yeah, exactly. Schmickle Schmodian. Splooging on kids. Next. The Reluctant Dragon. So this was a weird one that not a lot of people have heard of. I'm sure it wasn't marketed because it's just kind of, it doesn't make sense to children. But it's about the League of Nations. So it has been evidenced that events such as, PEARLHARBOR and the Big Nine were FFs, which are covert missions designed to deceive the public in such a way that they appear as though they are being carried out by other entities to gain support from American citizens to go to war. So there's a book called PH, The Mother of All Conspiracies, where author Mark E. Wiley asserts that the U.S. was warned by the governments of Britain, Netherlands, Australia, Peru, Korea, and the Soviet Union that a surprise attack on this place was coming. All important secret Japanese codes about the airstrike were broken and deciphered before the event. Roosevelt, Marshall, and others knew the attack was coming, allowed it to happen, and covered up their knowledge. This is because of a promise FDR had made to the American people, which he solemnly gave and repeated not to send their sons into a foreign war unless provoked. What's up, Clint? So, since all previous attempts to provoke Tiny Mustache Man to declare war on the U.S. had failed, there needed to be an attack on American soil to create an emotional response and foment America's participation in the war. And this had been planned a long time before that by the League of Nations, which you all should know what that is. It's a intergovernmental organization founded as a result of the Treaty of Versailles following World War I. The League of Nations would become the modern-day United Nations, which also was created by the Theosophists and the Great White Brotherhood of, what do you even call those guys? What were they called? Not Overmen. It'll come back to me. Anyways, so other organizations like the Bilderberg, the G20, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral, Bohemian Club, all of these consist of the international elite in the areas of politics, banking, business, military, and media. Each conference is held under intense security and secrecy. Now, when I wrote this book, not a lot of people had heard of these clubs, but now, like Bohemian Grove, at least, is getting a little bit of traction. But I was trying to write like a teen's first guide to conspiracies. So I was trying to put as much foundational facts and information in there as well as new stuff. So in 1941, Disney released a cartoon called The Reluctant Dragon that gives us a glimpse of what these secret meetings are about. And this is a picture of Reluctant Dragon there. Hidden Masters, that's what they're called. The Hidden Masters of Tibet. So, Reluctant Dragon is a film about a young boy who is a shepherd's son who considers himself an authority on knights and dragons. One day, this little boy's father races down the hill surrounded by his flock of sheep. The sheep represent the population and how the elite view them. The shepherd alerts his son that he has just seen a giant scaly monster, and the boy identifies it from his book as a dragon, and the father once again races off to warn the townspeople. Now, does this sound a little familiar to Chicken Little? So the boy goes off to investigate the dragon for himself and discovers something surprising. The dragon is a shy, effeminate poet who knows nothing about terrorizing countrysides or devouring damsels. So he's nothing like what the boy has been reading in his book. Meanwhile, the villagers have summoned the knight, Sir Giles, who is a famous dragon slayer. The boy, determined to warn the knight that the dragon is not dangerous, sneaks in on him while he is bathing. It gets weird in these old cartoons. Remember we were talking about Walt Disney himself being obsessed with butts and poops and whatever, nubs, I don't know. He said he could talk about butts for 30 minutes straight. So he discovers that the mighty Sir Giles the Knight is actually a white-haired old man with a monocle who is also a poet. So I guess the ancient Greeks were one of the first to make a connection between poetry and prophecy, and this goes back to invocating spirits of gods and goddesses into you to help you with your art performance or your musical performance. So they believed that when the poet became inspired or possessed, he was actually in contact with divine beings who revealed visions of the past and future. So then throughout Western occultism, you got wizards, druids, and shamans are all expected to be poets as well as prophets. This is where you get the idea of the bard also. So in Celtic Druidism, the poet or the bard was a living and walking library. Because of the absence of writing, or how not everybody knew how to read and write, memories held the history. So legends, songs, customs, and even legal codes, the entire heritage of a tribe or people could be all encapsulated in their bard or their poet. So for that reason, anyone who laid a hand against a poet was considered, an outlaw or cursed. Yeah, Moldy's a mod. The bards of ancient Ireland were authorized to appear on the battlefield and, by a simple command, impose a truce between warring factions. That's how important they were. So when the boy introduces the knight to the dragon, they hit it off and they recite poetry to each other. And the boy reminds them that the townspeople are expecting a fight, so they conspire to act out the battle for the reaction of the crowd. When the dragon inquires about the moral implications of such a deception, Sir Giles reminds him that it's all in the boy's book and they are simply following the script. So what's going on in your brain as I explain this to you? Like, that world leaders at the top, they don't war, they don't hate each other, they're not fighting. They're using you to act out scripts that they've already rehearsed. I have a picture on my phone. On the plane, I was going through my photo library because there's nothing else to do. They don't even give you movies on the plane anymore. And I found this great picture. I don't know if I can find it now, but it was like George Bush and Putin and somebody else all in their Freemasonic robes, all having a grand old time together. I don't know if I can find it now. But yeah, at the top, at these League of Nations, at these Bohemian Groves, at these trilateral commissions, you think they're fighting? They're not fighting. They're just getting their lines correct. And they send you to fight because they love the blood sacrifice. Anyway, I can't find it. Maybe next time. So they're simply acting out the script in the little boy's book. The battle is played out the next day, and Sir Giles successfully slays the dragon for everyone to see. In the real world of politics, the very elite from all over the world who attend these secret meetings, they do not oppose each other, okay? They get together and they plan wars for us to fight and villains for us to slay, and we just follow the script, just like Chicken Littles. So the ending of this cartoon, The Reluctant Dragon, is it's all business for them. What is that book? All Wars Are Bankers' Wars? Smedley Butler? Get that one. So the ending of The Reluctant Dragon is more peculiar when the dragon does not stay hidden, but is said to be completely reformed. Whereby the knight and the satisfied villagers welcome him into society. So what could this reformed dragon be? Could it be Operation Paperclip? That's where I'm going with this. This dragon who was first feared and then conquered and finally resurrected and made to become an integral part of society. Now we have, okay, bye Paul, have fun. Oh, okay, so me and Paul are going to be doing a 4 Disney movie show. We're going to be doing Mary Poppins. We're going to be doing, what are the 4? So y'all can watch along. Okay, Mary Poppins, Song of the South, Black Cauldron, and Tomorrowland. So if you want to watch any of those movies in the next couple weeks, me and Paul are going to break them down maybe second week of April. Bye, Paul. Have fun at church. I wish I was going to choir practice. I'll stay here with you guys. You guys are fun. We're doing donuts. We're doing chat. We're talking crazy Disney propaganda films that you've never heard of. And now we're going to talk about Operation Paperclip. Yay! So after the war ended, in 1945, the victorious American and Russian intelligence teams began to treasure hunt throughout occupied Germany for military and scientific discoveries. So they were looking for things like new rockets, new aircraft designs, medicines, electronics, whatever. They were also hunting down the doctors and scientists whose work had nearly won the war for Germany. And they rounded up all the Nazi scientists they could. I'm not supposed to be saying that word on YouTube. What can I say instead of that? If you say it too much, you'll get in trouble. BLA says Black Cauldron is Lloyd Alexander book. Nice. Oh, I didn't know it was a book. I'll look into that. Thank you. I just spelled it. NAZI. So they rounded up all the NAZI scientists they could, and they brought them to America. The government had originally intended only to debrief them and send them back to Germany, but when they realized the extent of the scientists' knowledge and expertise, the War Department decided it would be a waste to send them all back home. So there was only one problem. It was illegal, and the law explicitly prohibited NAZI officials from immigrating to America, and as many as 3/4 of the men in question had been ardent NAZIs. So they were convinced that, say, zanies, okay, so NAZIs are now zanies. Okay. So they were convinced that the German scientists could help America's post-war efforts. President Truman agreed in September 1946 to authorize Project Paperclip, the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which became the CIA, program to bring selected Germans to work on America's behalf during the Cold War. Because war is such a racket, such good business, you can't stop doing them. I mean, how would you make money if we all got along? So this later opened up many umbrella projects stemming from Zany's mad scientist research, such as MK Ultra. Now we talk about that ad nauseum on this channel, on Jay's channel, on all of the channels that we are affiliated with. We should all know by now what is MK Ultra, what is Project Monarch, and all of the other projects that MK Ultra was the umbrella for. So the longtime members of the Zany Party and the Gestapo had conducted experiments on humans at concentration camps. That's where they learned how to do these things, how to scientifically perfect a technique that had been around in the satanic ritual abuse bloodlines. They distilled it down to a perfect science in Zany, Germany. And by using slave labor and committing other heinous war crimes, these men were given key positions in science, military, and education. So then by 1955, more than 760 German scientists had been granted citizenship in the U.S. and given prominent positions in the American scientific community under Project Paperclip. They also went to South America. One of the comedians we were talking to backstage was from Argentina, and he was from a place that had German towns all around, and they all know this down there, that the Zanies came to Argentina, and he was even making jokes about the town of Twins and about how they there's a town where they claim that Tiny Mustache Man died there. So it's probably fake news that he unalived himself. He most likely escaped to South America, where he lived out his days. And even the Argentinians have legends about Tiny Mustache Man dying there. Where's the donut link? It's right here. Here you go. Donuts make me sing and make me expose my donut of gratitude. He died in Argentina. Yeah, it's looking like that is true. So what did these zany scientists give us besides mind control? They brought with them V2 rocket plans, UFO designs, flying saucer designs, mind control experiments, and Wernher von Braun. Paperclip's most famous beneficiary was an SS officer who helped develop the V2 rockets that devastated England. He later went to work for NASA, rising to the post of Deputy Assistant Director of Planning. So, fake and gray NASA has got famous Nazi zany scientists working for him. Wernher von Braun. Guess who else was super close personal friends with Wernher von Braun? Boom. There you go. Walt Disney shaking hands with a famous zany scientist in front of his rockets. So von Braun worked on guided missiles for the Army. He was later director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. He became somewhat of a celebrity in the 1950s and early 60s and as one of Walt Disney's experts on the world of tomorrow. I wonder why. In 1970, he became NASA's associate administrator. The ideals of the Zanies also found a home with scientist and member of the Ordo Templi Orientis Jack Parsons of Jet Propulsion's laboratory, who was the co-founder of the California Institute of Technology. Now, Wernher von Braun would acknowledge Jack Parsons as the father of America's space program. I have a whole thing on Jack Parsons in the other book, so maybe when we're done with this, we'll just go through that one because I have a whole thing on Jack Parsons and his Babylon working with L. Ron Hubbard to produce a moonchild and all sorts of other crazy stuff happening in the desert. Isaac Weishaupt talks a lot about that, and actually next time we do a live show, we're looking at Las Vegas with Isaac Weishaupt and Jamie Kennedy, so that should be really fun. So, yeah, Parsons was the father of America's space program as anointed by Wernher von Braun. The Californian OTO, which is a sex cult from Aleister Crowley, it was saved from extinction by Parsons in 1939, Parsons was a fervent admirer of Crowley and enthusiastic practitioner of the sex magic and Ethelemite. He saw no contradiction between his scientific and magical pursuits, and before each rocket test launch, he would invoke the Greek god Pan. BLA and I did a whole 4-hour stream about Pan, and then Clint sent me this quote, and it was really good. Let me if I can find it. Yes, I found it. Okay. From Eliphas Levi about Pan. You ready? There existed in the past, and there may be still in the present, assemblies which are presided over by this figure, seated on a throne and having a flaming torch between the horns. So they're talking about either Baphomet or Pan, interchangeable. But the adorers of this sign do not consider, as do we, that it is a representation of the devil. On the contrary, for them, it is that of the god Pan, the god of our modern schools of philosophy, the god of the Alexandrian theurgic school, and of our own mystical Neoplatonist, the god of Lamartine and Victor Cousin, I don't know who those guys are, the god of Spinoza, I know who that is, and Plato, the god of the primitive Gnostic schools. the Christ also of the dissident priesthood. This last qualification, ascribed to the goat of black magic, will not astonish students of religious antiquities who are acquainted with the phases of symbolism and doctrine in their various transformation, whether in India, Egypt, or Judea. So now we're talking about Pan, the god of all, who Jack Parsons invoked before every rocket launch, and who is considered the father of fake and gray. What's it? Snozzies? No. Zanies and Nazas. Gorsh. Rachel says, way back, me and BLA did a show about Sylvia Plath and Pan. Oh, send that to me. I will definitely watch that. So, working with the formula of thelemic magic, he supposedly, Jack Parsons, established contact with extraterrestrial beings of the Order of Iwas. During this period of sex magic operations, Parsons was engaged in nuclear research and paved the way for the present-day passion for things strange and occult, for drugs, UFOs, and communicating with otherworldly intelligences capable of transforming life on this planet, a phenomenon which Crowley spent a lifetime trying to accomplish. So in my live talk, we go into science fiction, Arthur C. Clarke, and the propaganda that was written and started in the 1950s to pave the way for the space age, which we are now supposed to be in, which is, everyone has figured out by now, is fake and gray. If you just watch India going to the moon, I mean, that was laughable, right? That was ridiculous. I do have a quote in here from Carol Quigley, Tragedy and Hope. Now, Jay has a great lecture series on tragedy and hope. If you are interested in the whole book, it is the global plan laid out by the globalist himself, Carol Quigley. He says, the powers of financial capitalism had another far-reaching aim. Nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. This system was to be controlled in a feudalist fashion by the central banks of the world, acting in concert by secret agreements arrived at in frequent private meetings and conferences such as Bohemian Grove. The apex of the system was to be the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, a private bank owned and controlled by the world's central banks, which were themselves private corporations. So this is where we get into the meat of tonight, the heart of the issue, which plagues everyone and which I hate, is freaking taxes, man. It is just insane how much we have to pay. And I don't know what slow boy, smooth brain you guys are all living in, but your federal income tax does not make schools and roads and hospitals, okay? It goes to pay back the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank, for printing money, which is nothing. We're going to go into this. I'm going to do a book on Rockfin. Next on Rockfin is Architecture of DC, and after that is called The Tyranny of the Federal Reserve, if you want to grab that book. So, taxes. Walt Disney has stated that he always saw Donald Duck as the common man. So Donald Duck is your everyman. He's a little smarter than Goofy. But he always portrays Donald as the one who is irrational, ill-tempered. Donald is lecherous. He's impulsive. He is low of intelligence. And he is easily manipulated. So this is how Walt Disney sees everyman. And in the cartoon called The New Spirit, which is a weird name for a cartoon, Donald is implored by a voice on the radio to help stamp tyranny from the earth by paying his income tax. So the radio comes on and tells him that more money is needed for guns and for ships and for democracy, and imparting to him this motto, taxes to beat the axes. What's up, Techmar? How are you? So, when Donald rushes his payment to Washington, D.C., we discover exactly where his cartoon tax revenues went, or where, people think this stuff goes, which is not any better, but in the cartoon, it goes to factories working day and night to produce, and the way they say it is so weird, guns, machine guns, anti-tank guns, long-range guns, guns of all kinds, guns. And it's just so bizarre. The narrator, he's like saying this with morbid enthusiasm, like guns turn him on or something. And then you have a cartoon called The Spirit of 1943, which also features Donald Duck being duped into paying income tax once again by Scrooge McDuck. Nonetheless, Scrooge is telling his nephew Donald about paying taxes. So why would the U.S. government in 1942 need to use Donald Duck to remind people to pay their taxes? It's not like we're going to forget nowadays. Maybe because in 1942, Americans were just getting used to this idea. So the income tax the first one was instituted in 1862, but until the 1940s, only the people who worked for or who were involved with the federal government paid annual income tax. Not a lot of people know that prior to 1913, federal income tax was considered unconstitutional. Rachel loves the guns. So there was a orchestrated stock market crash in 1907. A meeting was held in 1910 at a J.P. Morgan estate on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia. And there's also a book called Creature from Jekyll Island. It's about this thick, about the story of federal income tax. We were going to do that, and then I found The Tyranny of the Federal Reserve, which is a little more palatable for a show. Palatable. But so Jekyll Island, it was there that the central banking bill called the Federal Reserve Act was written by a group of elite bankers of the Rothschild, Rockefeller, Morgan, Harriman families. They all met in secret to discuss a bill they wanted to establish and a bank called the Federal Reserve. A lot of people think that the sinking of the Titanic was also a part of this. Could be. So the legislation was written by bankers under such strict secrecy that the authors could only address each other by their first names. So then in 1913, Woodrow Wilson signed the legislation, and the law was put to a vote by Congress 2 days before Christmas, when most of the congressmen were away on vacation. They love doing this. They love slipping things in when no one's looking. They just did it at the Super Bowl, where they gave, the mega trillions to the usual suspects. So to complete the trap, they introduced a federal income tax bill, but to do this, they needed an amendment to the Constitution that required at least 36 states to vote for it. Only 2 states agreed, but they simply lied and announced that it had been received, and the majority, and the bill was passed. The enforcement of money paid to federal income tax is illegal to this day. as of 2012. I haven't kept up with that. I don't know. Everyone just pays it anyway. It doesn't matter. So the IRS is a privately owned company. Again, all money collected as income tax only goes to pay the interest on money borrowed from the Federal Reserve. What's going on? Checking the donuts. Ooh. Donuts of plenty. We've got $10 Logan Daily Nub Jamie. What's Nub, Logan? That's a good one. Melissa, $10. Thank you for your work. Thank you for the donuts. Cheryl, $100. Thank you so much, Jamie. Love your streams. I hope you know how much we appreciate you. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Cheryl. I appreciate that. Keeps all these lights on. That was very generous. We shall proceed. What do you think? Are y'all excited to pay your taxes? So yeah, the Federal Reserve is a private corporation. What's the joke? It's about as federal as Federal Express. It's owned by international bankers. It is under no regulations by the U.S. government. It loans currency to the government at interest, and up to 35% of the average American wages goes to pay the interest on the money lent by the Federal Reserve Bank. Now, we just read that quote from Tragedy and Hope, Carol Quigley. The way they want it is a world economy, and the center of the world economy to be set up in Basel, Switzerland. But as it stands now, federal income tax is a direct, unapportioned, or excise tax. And according to the Constitution, all direct taxes must be apportioned to be legal. Taxation, what is that? No taxation without representation. There is no law or statute in existence that requires you to pay this tax, but if Donald Duck is convinced, then apparently no further evidence was needed in the 1940s. So today, the U.S. tax code is over 3 million words long and is updated and republished every year. 75 years ago, the instructions for the 1040 form were 2 pages long. Today, they are 189 pages long. I mean, this is such a freaking racket. You got to go pay somebody to tell you how much you owe the government. And that's theft also. It doesn't make, like, and they don't even tell you, like, the government's like, you owe me money. And you're like, okay, how much? And they're like, but if you don't pay enough, then we're going to put you in jail. And you're like, well, just tell me how much. And like, no, you got to figure it out. I mean, it's just, anyways. According to the Tax Foundation, the average American has to work until April 17th just to pay the federal, state, and local taxes. So when the U.S. government was first implemented a personal income tax back in 1913, the vast majority of the population paid a rate of 1%, and the highest marginal tax rate was only 7%. Taxes are beyond criminal. Straight to jail meme, exactly. Straight to jail. You overpay, straight to jail. Underpay, straight to jail. So when it dawned on President Woodrow Wilson what he had done, he regretted his actions terribly. And he actually stated in 1919 that I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit. We are no longer a government of free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men. Now, one of the conspiracy classics you'll all remember was Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist was 2/3 good. 2/3 a good documentary. One was about the Federal Reserve. So go look up ye old Zeitgeist, and you can disregard the Christian section because that has been debunked thoroughly. But the other two portions of Zeitgeist were pretty solid, actually. So if you want to learn more about the Federal Reserve and all of that, fiat banking, go watch Zeitgeist. But again, so Zeitgeist is a perfect example of Chicken Little. Yeah, something's happening, but the solutions that they offer in Zeitgeist were bonkers. You know, the Jacques Fresco Venus project, that was pretty crazy. Rachel was teaching her kids about the fractional reserve banking system this week. Exactly. That's why you need homeschool moms. Based homeschool moms tell you the truth. So Woodrow Wilson, he admits that he ruined the country by helping to put forth this federal income tax. So from 1921 to 1929, the Federal Reserve increased the currency supply by 62%. And they still do this. What is that joke? Money printer go brrr. They just print it and debase the currency. Been doing it for 100 years. And then that, coupled with the practice of the margin loan or fractional reserve lending, led to the economic boom of the Roaring Twenties. Then in 1929, all loans were called in almost simultaneously, crashing the market and signaling the beginning of the Great Depression. Does anything even happen organically anymore, or is everything an orchestrated event? I don't know. Rachel says, one of my big goals with the homeschooling is to teach the kids the stuff that nobody ever learns in public school that is so important for handling your life as an adult. Exactly. Set them up for a good credit score, how to, use the financial system to your advantage. There are ways that you don't have to be a wage slave if you know about savvy financial, like investing and, well, nowadays crypto. But there's just all kinds of ways that finance bros make money because they make a game out of it. So the Great Depression happens. Congressman Charles Lindbergh stated in 1921 that under the Federal Reserve Act, panics are scientifically created. The present panic is the first scientifically created one worked out as we figure out a mathematical equation. So most of the tax debate today is focused on income taxes, but people, they're going to say, if you don't pay your taxes, how are you going to get roads and schools and hospitals? So as we have seen, not one penny of income tax goes to pay anything but interest on the money lent to us by the Federal Reserve. That goes straight into the pockets of wealthy internationals. So for things like street lights, roads, schools, law enforcement, all of these things that, we enjoy as civilized people, Americans pay dozens of other types of taxes every single year. And here is a crazy list of them. Should I read them out? All the taxes y'all are paying, you think it's just state, federal, and sales tax? No. You've got building permit taxes, capital gains tax, cigarette tax, court fines, dog license tax, federal unemployment tax, fishing license tax, food license tax, gasoline tax, gift tax, hunting tax, inheritance tax, inventory tax, IRS charges, tax on top of tax, IRS penalties, tax on top of that, liquor tax, luxury tax, marriage license tax, Medicare taxes, property taxes. This would be like some kind of song. recreational vehicle taxes, toll booth tax, sales tax, self-employment tax, school tax, septic permit tax, what the heck, service charge tax, social security tax, state unemployment tax, telephone tax, I can't even read these anymore, toll bridge tax, vehicle sales tax, workers' compensation tax, vehicle license and registration tax. I mean, is that enough? Oh, can we add carbon tax to that? Can we see now why this is all such BS? They want you to pay a carbon tax now? Just breath tax. Literally breath tax. Pay a fart tax. That's what the poor cows have to do. The cows can't even fart anymore. They can't pay taxes, so they can't fart. Nub tax. Yes. This boggling list of taxes is even more interesting considering the impetus for many colonial Americans to join the Revolutionary War came from imposing of ridiculous taxes, such as fresh air tax by the King of England, the tyrant King George III. Yes, he tried to tax people with more windows in their homes and call it the fresh air tax. Rachel says, I love it when people say I'm a fascist because I think democracy is BS. And I just asked them what they think Americans paid taxes under King George versus now. Right, exactly. Boston Tea Party was over like 2% tax. So King George III's Currency Act forced the colonists to conduct their business by only using printed banknotes borrowed from the Bank of England at interest. So this is an old game. There's no new games. Satan's not creative. Okay. The only new tax would be nub tax. You know, they probably will have a stupid tax like that. Like, if you have your working genitals intact and can procreate, you're going to have to be taxed. The only way not to be taxed is to get a nub. So after the Revolution, the American Revolution, the new United States adopted a radically different economic system in which the government issued its own value-based money so that private banks were not siphoning off the wealth of the people through interest-bearing banknotes. Is this boring? I don't know. I think it's interesting. You're paying for it. You should know. Even Benjamin Franklin's ye old granny butt slapper Hellfire Club, even he hated taxes. He says the refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators, was probably the prime cause of the revolution. That's old Benji Franklin. So let's talk about the real economy. If your nub is above 1/8, it gets taxed. Yeah. So the real economy is not what you think it is. Where are we going with this? Nathan Mayer Rothschild. Okay, let's get into it. If you're ready, I'm ready. So if you listen to any political debate, you will hear the same word repeated over and over. We must boost the economy. It's not good for the economy. We're in a bad economy. How can we save the economy? Heading towards a global economy. We need jobs for the economy. So we know that war is horrible, but we tolerate it because it's good for the economy. It is this giant invisible entity that greatly affects our lives, but we know little about it. Politicians would have us believe that if we are innovative enough and we work hard enough, we can somehow save this dying system, this poor, wretched economy, this fragile Victorian waif of a money system. It's always in peril. Our poor economy needs to be propped up. It's the system, however, and not us, that is the problem. So, in September 2011, a protest movement began in Zuccotti Park, located in New York City's Wall Street Financial District. Y'all remember, what was it called? I went to it. Occupy movement. Remember Occupy? The protesters' slogan was, "We are the 99%, which referred to the issue of income inequality, which, has obviously reached disparaging levels. This was in 2012. It's even worse now. And Occupy, oh man, we can't even go into it, but the scariest stuff is happening. People are using laws to squat in properties and declare that they're property. So like if you go on vacation and you're gone for a while, illegals can come break into your house and squat there, and there's nothing that you can do to get rid of them. Ooh, Spore is calling me from what's it called? Boiler Room. I'm going to answer it. Hello, you're live on the air. Hi. How are you? I'm doing a live stream right now. That's okay. I'm answering because it's you. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I totally will. How much longer? Give me maybe like 30 more minutes and I can be ready. Okay. Okay. Alright, bye. Okay, bye. Okay, I'm gonna be on Boiler Room tonight too. That'll be fun. Maybe Baselit will be on there too. Okay, so
Call?
Yeah, Spore called.
What's going on, brother?
We're gonna do Boiler Room. If you want to. So we're almost done. Talking about taxes. Taxes to beat the Axis. Oh yeah, Occupy movement. Okay, so Occupy movement, this was crazy. It spread to like every major city and countless small towns. Their primary issue was with wealthy insurance companies and investment bankers who kind of crippled the economy and who they felt deserved no bailouts, and rightly so, because bankers suck, right? So one of the first modern international banking families was the Rothschilds dynasty. If you are a tinfoil hat and you haven't heard of Rothschilds, you need to go back and look up this story. They were a family of international banking, actually a dynasty rather, and probably the most successful business family in history. Nikki Hilton is now married to a Rothschild. The story of how they took over the financial system of Europe is worth repeating because it is the perfect example of how the economies are allowed to collapse and how fortunes are made for certain people. So in 1815, French Emperor Napoleon, his army stood against the Duke of Wellington and the British at the Battle of Waterloo. So this is a pretty famous turning point in history. The victor would decide the fate of the entire continent. So if Napoleon won, France would be the undisputed master on the European front. If he lost, England would hold the balance of power in Europe. and would be in a position to greatly expand its sphere of influence. Meanwhile, at the stock exchange in London, they were at a fever pitch as traders awaited the news of the outcome of this battle. So the Rothschilds had a spy network, and it was well known and it was extensive. So a Rothschild representative from the battlefield jumped on board a specially chartered boat and headed out into the channel in a hurried dash for the English coast. In his possession was a top secret report on the progress of the crucial Battle of Waterloo. And the moment he read the report, Nathan Rothschild sped to the trading floor. He leaned against his pillar, emotionless, expressionless, and instructed his agents to sell, sell, sell. Word began to sweep through the stock exchange. Rothschild knows. Wellington has lost at Waterloo. The selling turned into a panic as people rushed to unload their worthless stocks. Then, as emotionless as ever, sounds like a sociopath, still leaning against his pillar, he began to give subtle signals that only his highly trained agents could detect. On the cue from their boss, dozens of agents made their way to the order desk around the exchange and bought every stock in sight for pennies on the dollar. So he got everybody to rush to sell, and then he bought the dip. He bought that crypto dip. A short time later, the official news arrived that Wellington had actually won the battle, and within seconds, the values skyrocketed. So as word spread, the value of consoles rose even higher. Nathan Rothschild had bought control of the British economy overnight, and the family's already vast fortune was multiplied 20 times over. This is not even the craziest story of this Rothschild family. So then, the First Bank of the United States was founded in 1791. Largely through the efforts of the Rothschilds' chief U.S. supporter, Alexander Hamilton. Then, by the end of its 20-year charter, the bank had almost ruined the nation's economy while enriching the bankers. Yes, 1815 pump and dump, exactly. Congress refused to renew the charter and signaled their intention to go back to a state-issued value-based currency on which the people paid no interest. This resulted in a threat from Nathan Rothschild against the U.S. government. He said either the application for renewal of the charter is granted or the United States will find itself involved in a most disastrous war. Then Congress still refused to renew the charter, and Rothschild decided to teach the Americans a lesson. Financed by the Bank of England and Britain, they launched the War of 1812 to recolonize the United States and force them back into the slavery of the Bank of England. And the plan actually worked, kind of, even though the War of 1812 was technically won by the United States. Congress was forced to grant a new charter for yet another private bank, issuing the public currency as loans at interest, the second bank of the United States. So once again, private bankers were in control of the nation's money supply, and they did not care who makes the laws. Now, who said that? Who said? Some old crusty conspiracy man. Give me the banks, and I don't care who makes the laws. Somebody in the chat will know. I care not who makes the laws. So today, we are living in this kind of neo-feudalism, this system where super rich and mega corporations, they lobby and pull all the strings. Even normies should know about lobbying. Like, come on, lobbying and welfare, corporate welfare. I mean, I just saw a guy complaining about social security and like food stamps and stuff like that. Like, some fat lady named Tammy with 5 kids take all my money. No, except Tammy is the federal government and her 5 kids are like billionaire shareholders. Your taxes are not going to feed poor people, I promise you. Let's see. Yeah, we're not talking about people with just a few million dollars. We're talking about ultra wealthy who have enough sitting in offshore banks to buy all of the goods and services made in the US. Like, not only that, the Oxfam organization has reported that the world's 100 richest people earned a total of $240 billion in 2012 alone. And they use tax codes with loopholes. Big corporations and ultra wealthy use to minimize their tax burdens as much as possible. Rothschild said that. Give me control of the, what is it? Somebody find me the actual, give me control of the currency and I don't care who makes the laws. Was that Rothschild? So the biggest welfare queens are actually mega corporations, and what they get away with is absolutely astounding. It turns out that instead of paying taxes to the federal government, they actually get money back. So a lot of people did their taxes this year and come to find out they owe money where they never owed it before. And corporations like Honeywell, they made in 2008, 2009, 2010, I did a study on 3 corporations, Honeywell, Verizon, and General Electric. So the profits of Honeywell for these years were $4.9 billion. Their taxes were negative $34 million. So they got $34 million back. Verizon's profits were $32 billion. Their taxes were negative $951 million. General Electric profit $7.7 billion, taxes negative $4.7 billion. So this is who is getting tax breaks, not Tammy with 5 kids. Hello, what is she reading? I'm reading my own book. Reading my own book to you. Because I don't sell it anymore, because it has a lot of occult and magic stuff in it that I do not agree with anymore. But I think some of the stuff is still useful. So we have fun and we talk about donuts and we talk about Disney. So under this neo-feudalist system, all the rest of us are debt slaves, pay piggies, 9-to-5 cucks, including our own government. The elite use a sprawling network of secret societies like Skull and Bones, and think tanks like Tavistock Institute. Remember we talked about Tavistock a couple weeks ago. They use charitable organizations like the World Wildlife Fund and non-governmental organizations like the Rockefeller Foundation to advance their own agendas. They control how we view the world through their ownership of the media and their dominance over the education system. Over the years, the Rockefeller Foundation and other elitist organizations have poured massive amounts of money into Ivy League schools, which are considered to be the standard against which all other colleges and universities are measured, and the last 4 U.S. presidents were educated at Ivy League schools and members of Skull and Bones. So the elite, what do you even call them? They fund campaigns of most of our politicians, and they have enormous amounts of influence over international organizations like the United Nations, the IMF, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. The international bankers created the central banks of the world, including the Federal Reserve, And they use those central banks to get the governments of the world ensnared in endless cycles of debt from which there is no escape. Why don't you ask anybody who has ever tried to go back to any kind of standard, gold standard, or silver standard, or like hard money? You can't ask them because they're dead. So government debt is just a way to legitimately take money from all of us, transfer it to the government, and then transfer it to the pockets of the ultra wealthy and global elite. Most Americans have never even heard of the Bank of International Settlements, but it is at the very heart of the global financial system. So here is that picture of that. Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. John Connor's in the house. So have you ever wondered why things never seem to change in Washington, D.C.? No matter who we vote for, it is because both parties are owned by the establishment. I wrote this before Donald Trump was even a thing. I don't know about him. I don't know. I'm not MAGA, but I don't hate him. So it would be nice to think that your votes matter for something, but in the real world, the politician that raises more money wins more than 80% of the time. Researchers have looked into the ownership of the big Wall Street banks that dominate the Fed, and they find the same names keep popping up over and over: Rockefeller, Rothschild, Warburgs, and all the royal families of Europe. So, remember how we talked about they were getting boys geared up for war and girls, they were making princess warrior programming with the toys and the cartoons, because there's nothing more lucrative to the large international bank interests than war. It is important to remember that prior to the creation of the Federal Reserve, there was no such thing as a world war. Financially, wars are created to force private central banks onto nations, and our backbreaking labor only goes to enrich the already super wealthy. And now what are they doing? They're taking away your Social Security, taking away your unemployment, taking away your any kind of social benefit that you have ever paid into. It's just turned to ash, right? And now they want to make you work until you're 75. They want you to work until you're dead. Okay? They don't want you to retire. I think it's really stupid how these young guys are like, well, I'm never going to stop working. I'm not going to retire. I'm like, man, you don't even know. You've never even had a real job. Like, how... You've never struggled. All you do is sit there and talk BS to a camera. And then you're going to say, I want people to work until they're 75. Like, you think it's a good thing? Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Anywho, let's talk about a cartoon called The Seven Wise Dwarfs. 1941, Disney released a cartoon called The Seven Wise Dwarfs. In it, the dwarves sing a happy tune. We dig, 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 dig in our mind the whole day through. To dig, 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 dig is what we like to do. We dig up diamonds by the score, 1,000 rubies, sometimes more. But we don't know what we dig them for. We dig, dig, a dig. Dig, indeed. So not even the seven wise dwarves can understand why you have to work so hard, or what are you even working for. Anyone who's ever had a soul-crushing job will understand why retirement is a thing. And you don't need to have senior citizens in the workforce. That's dangerous to them and to whatever, machinery they're operating or whatever they're doing. You don't want senior citizens, 75, 80 years old, commuting to work all the time and back. Like, no, let them freaking have a break in life. It doesn't make sense, and it's dangerous. So in this cartoon, once the dwarves' bags are full of jewels, they march along to the beat of hi ho, another day of work happily completed. It's off to buy we go, they say. So what is the reward for all of their backbreaking and diligent labor? Are they allowed to enjoy any dwarf women? No. Maybe the dwarves use it to put food on their tiny family table? No. They trade their rocks in for paper, war bonds to be exact. So this is another propaganda cartoon. The 7 wise dwarves are mining real wealth, which is a diamond or a jewel or a ruby or something, and they go and they trade it in for war bonds. Is there anything in this exchange that would be very useful to the natural needs of a dwarf or a human for that matter? I don't think so. So in the end, they march home singing, hi ho, we'll win the war with 5 for 4. So as war bonds transform into shells used to shoot down NAZI airplanes, it says, keep your money fighting, buy more and more. Rachel says, if everyone is always at work, where did the children go? Who takes care of the churches in the communities? You only serve the government corporate slave masters. Exactly. Do you really want your waitress to be 75 years old? Do you really want your person working on a factory line to be 75 years? No. Let those old people take a nap, man. Nope, but you got to keep your money fighting. You got to buy more and more. One last cartoon. We're almost done. I got to go and boiler room. 1943 cartoon, Der Fuhrer's Face. This is one where they are mocking Tiny Mustache Man. And Donald wakes up in a dystopia, a zany land where his home is plastered with SWASTIKAS. His cuckoo clock chimes that saying. He's got posters on his wall of dictators. In his symbolic inundation, it is as if the artist were predicting a cartoon merchandising craze. So everything in his nightmare German zany reality is dominated with the face, with the logos and the faces of this tyrannical regime. But it looks like your typical child's bedroom, only replace those things with Mickey Mouse or another Disney character, Hannah Montana or whatever. Yeah, Rachel, I always feel bad when I see 80-year-old woman working at McDonald's. I know, dude. It's not right. Okay, so Donald wakes up as a zany cartoon merchandising. So during his meager breakfast in the cartoon, Donald is handed a copy of that book again, that red book, MEINKAMPF, and ordered to improve his mind. He is told he is free, but he still has to work like a slave at the ammunition factory. In the end, he wakes up from his nightmare only to find the red and black thingies have been replaced by red, white, and blue stars, and Tiny Mustache Man is now the Statue of Liberty. So he has simply traded one dangerous ideology for another one. This environment represents the inescapable ideology first used by the Zanies and then later by the Disney Corporation themselves. In Donald's Zany Nightmare, When Donald looks out the window, he sees the trees and shrubs and fences have all been sculpted into, you know what I'm talking about, that symbol. Ironically, later on, the bushes and shrubs at Disneyland would be carefully trimmed to look like Disney characters. So the books that I was referencing in this chapter are The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley. The movies were Zeitgeist by Peter Joseph, Walt Disney Treasures on the Front Lines by Walt Disney Studios, an article called All Wars Are Bankers' Wars by Michael Rivero, and of course, All Wars Are Racket by Smedley Butler. I have a joke in here. It says, in capitalist America, bank robs you, haha. So that's like a play on those communist memes. And I have one more little weird stuff box in here. It says, on January 7, 1942, a month after the PH attack, the owner of Sun Rubber Company presented the sketches of a Mickey Mouse gas mask to Major General William M. Porter, the Chief of Chemical Warfare Service. The mask was made for children and was given the look of the famous Mickey Mouse to reduce the fear of actually wearing a gas mask. Walt Disney himself was very fond of the idea and gladly approved the production of the cute but creepy gas mask. So here is your Mickey Mouse gas mask right there. It's pretty crazy. And if anyone's got any more comments, donuts, super chats, tonight was really fun and informative. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. And tune in to Boiler Room in a little bit, where we're going to be talking about probably more Willy Wonka stuff and the trip to California. So next time we go live, going to be doing the last chapter in Weird Stuff, Operation Culture Creation, Part 1. It's full of landmines. I don't know how I'm going to get through it. We're going to have to go deep into the code words for this one, because this is the stuff that really has gotten people into trouble. But it is called 20th Century 666, The Dawn of the Dark Knight. So stay tuned next time for that one. And then after that, we'll probably just go into Weird Stuff Part 2. And I hope you all had a good night. Thank you all for the donuts and the nubs and the laughs. And I really appreciate it. So thanks, guys. Okay, bye.